The command to pray for all believers is given in the context of the command to be armed and to arm each other with the full armor of God. We need to stand together in God's armor because we are all wrestling with the same darkness and cannot stand against it on our own and without God's strength. As a brief review, I started this series with Ephesians 6:18. With all prayer and requests, praying at all times in the Spirit, and being watchful to this end in all perseverance and requests for all the saints. Ephesians 6:18. The first installment had as its main point that whatever command verse 18 is tied to, we together are commanded to do it at all times with all attentive prayer in the Spirit for every believer in our circle, brought before us or brought to our minds by the Spirit. We are not to omit or refuse any. Then the Spirit will also be guiding other believers in my world who will be praying for the people I missed and for me. We will cover each other's backs. Then we together will be praying for all believers, as this verse anticipates. I promised I would build the context of the verse later. That context begins with the familiar command to be strong in God's power by putting on the whole armor of God. Finally, be strong in the Lord and in the strength of his might. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. Ephesians 6:10 and 11. Like all of the other commands in verses 10 through 18, the commands in verses 10, be strong, be empowered, and 11, put on, are in the plural. Modern practice likes to individualize them as if they were singulars, which is fine to a point. The command to all of us together is also a command to me to do my part. But it is incorrect to read them only as individualized commands. We can only truly be strong in God's strength when we are standing together in his strength. We can only consistently stand up against the devil's fear and deceptions when we do so together, not separately. And we can each have a role in arming each other. Some pieces of armor can't be put on by the person wearing them by themselves. That is why these commands are in the plural and not stated as each of you be strong or each of you must put on the whole armor of God. We arm each other and stand together. We need each other. The reason we must stand together, being together empowered by the Lord's strength, having put his whole armor on each other, is that we are all wrestling against the same darkness. For our wrestling is not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against the powers, against the world's rulers of the darkness of this age, and against the spiritual forces of wickedness in the heavenly places. Therefore, put on the whole armor of God, that you may be able to withstand in the evil day, and having done all, to stand. Ephesians 6:12 and 13. We are fighting against spiritual enemies, all the spiritual forces that bring evil and spiritual darkness to the world. Each of us is wrestling against a whole army of evils. Paul wrote the first of these two sentences in the first person singular, we, us. Paul included himself in this. He also fought against the same enemies we do. I am wrestling against a whole army. If I try to do it by myself, I will lose. God gives his power to us fighting together, not separately and not in our own wisdom or plans. We need each other. Once Paul explains this, he repeats the command to all of us, you plural, to put on the whole armor of God. The word translated put on here and in verse 11 is pretty simple. It means to put on a piece of clothing, or in the middle voice, which is used here, to be formally invested or endowed in duo with a piece of clothing, to sink into a piece of clothing, to allow a piece of clothing to be put on, or to participate or cooperate in having it put on. We don't give ourselves the armor. It is the armor of God and is given to us. We also don't put all of this armor on ourselves. God and other believers must invest us with some of it. But when it is all put on, we together have God's panoply, all of his strength, everything he has available to us to fight our enemy. God gives all of this to us so that when the evil day, the day of fiercest battle comes, we will have the power, having done everything God empowers us to do, to withstand all of the devil's schemes and to come out of the battle still standing. We will win together. Contact information.